Welcome to Labor Union TV. I'm Bill Floyd. Of the more than 165 labor unions in the United States, SEIU, Service Employees Industrial Union, was the only one that reached out to the poor. In this case, the disorganized but hardest working poor. Why are the 1.4 million SEIU stopping to help fast food workers? SEIU is spending millions to spotlight this cause. Many decry that poverty destroys democracy. Back in the day, the United Auto Workers and the railroad car porters spent millions of dollars on Martin Luther King's civil rights campaign. United Auto Workers Walter Reuther and the longshore hero Harry Bridges created a method to end job discrimination along the entire Pacific Coast and in Detroit, in auto and along the entire ILWU network. In today's show, we visit the U.S. Senate in Washington, D.C. Senator Bernie Sanders wants to create a minimum wage. Bernie outlines how welfare for Walmart and McDonald's permits them to gouge obscene profits. Food stamps, affordable housing, public health, and emergency ward visits are paid for by us taxpayers. Let's go and watch Senator Sanders grill some Walmart lobbyists.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. One of the interesting aspects of discussions about the economy or income inequality inside the Beltway, as opposed to back home in the real world, is the very different tone that we hear. The idea that anybody could suggest that we are not seeing massive increases in income and wealth inequality is beyond my comprehension. If you go outside of the Beltway, there is no debate about that. The idea that anyone could suggest that today the economy for the middle class is anywhere near where it used to be is beyond comprehension, I think, to the vast majority of the American people. The reality that we're seeing today is that the middle class in this country is disappearing. Median family income is going down. We have more people living in poverty today than any time in the history of the United States of America. And as Secretary Reich pointed out, between 2009 and 2012, 95% of wealth, the situation is even worse. Maybe some of the panelists might want to defend the situation where the top 1% in America owns more wealth than the bottom, that the top 1% owns 38% of the wealth in this country, and the bottom 60% owns 2.3% of the wealth. Does anybody on that panel, and I will ask that question in a moment, think that that makes moral sense or economic sense? Does anybody think it makes moral or economic sense that one family, the Walton family, owns more wealth than the bottom 40% of the American people? Now, in terms of government action, we have heard that the stimulus package presumably had no impact. Well, that wasn't true in my state, nor was it true in America. By investing in our economy, in our kids, in infrastructure, according to the CBO, the Recovery Act, the stimulus bill, created or sustained up to 3.6 million jobs, a 4.2% boost for GDP in the first quarter of 2010, and a reduction in the unemployment rate of up to 2.1% in the last quarter of 2009, at a time we needed the jobs the most. Last point that I want to make, and I want to ask a question on this one. The Walton family is the wealthiest family in America. Does anybody on the panel think that they need significant welfare help? And yet it turns out that they are the largest recipient of welfare in America. Because when you pay workers starvation wages, which is what Walmart does, how do the workers at Walmart or McDonald's or Burger King survive? Well, they get Medicaid for their kids and for themselves. They get food stamps. They live in government-sponsored affordable housing. So I start off with my question to Dr. Winship, and we'll go down the line. Do you think the Walton family, worth $100 billion, is in need of welfare from the middle class of this country? Or do you think maybe we should raise the minimum wage so that those workers can earn a living wage and not have to get Medicaid or food stamps? Dr. Winship?
Thank you, Senator. So let me start with your earlier question about defending the wealth distribution that we have. So
Well, actually, my question was on the Walton family. Do you
Okay.
think they need welfare?
So I would not use the word welfare. I think it's stigmatizing.
Do you think their workers in large numbers should have to get Medicaid or food stamps?
What I think is that Walmart has the low prices, which...
Please answer my question.
So I'm sorry, repeat the question for me.
The question is, do you think the wealthiest family in this country, the Walton family, should have employees, large numbers of employees, who depend upon government help, Medicaid, food stamps, affordable housing, in order to get by, or should they pay their workers a living wage, and should we raise the minimum wage to make sure that they do that?
I think that we should not raise the wage above levels that's going to cause Walmart to not hire their workers. The only way that they're able to have the prices which benefit low-income people more than people up on the income distribution is by paying wages that are not as high as you or I might like.
So I'm hearing your question to be that the middle class of this country, through increased taxes, should be subsidizing the wealthiest family in this country who are paying inadequate wages. Secretary Reich, what's your take on that?
Senator, I do not think that taxpayers in this country ought to be subsidizing the wealthiest family in this country, or any company and any corporation that is paying its workers so little that those workers, in order to have a decent living, have got to rely on food stamps, Medicaid, subsidized housing, and so on. That is corporate welfare of the worst kind. But more broadly, let me simply say that Walmart is the largest employer in the United States. It is paying its workers, if you include its part-time workers, on average $8.80 an hour. Now compare that to 1955, when the largest employer in the United States was General Motors, and it was paying its workers, in today's dollars, $37 an hour.
That's a huge point. I don't have much time.
No,
Dr.
yeah.
Dr. Kearney and Dr. Mather, if they could answer the question, should the taxpayers of this country be subsidizing?
30 seconds each.
Well, 30 seconds is fine.
Yeah.
So I don't think we should be subsidizing Walmart, but I think workers have a choice about where they want to work. If they're choosing to work at Walmart, that is their choice, and we should not decide for them whether it's a good choice. The program subsidizes workers. These are poverty programs that benefits go directly to workers. So if you think that they're creating jobs and people are able to work and earn enough benefits to survive, I think it's a good thing.
Dr. Kearney?
When Walmart came to Washington, D.C., the number of job applicants per job, there were more than dozens of people willing to take each job. I think Walmart is a brilliant innovation, and I have no beef with the Walton family. It would be great if people could move up the wage distribution faster at Walmart and aspire to management positions and better positions for themselves and their children.
And now we take on our labor union TV viewers to a Good Jobs rally. Senator Sanders is speaking. Bernie receives cheers demanding $15 a minimum. $8 is impossible. Enough is enough, they cry out.
Joseph, thank you for all that you have done. And it's a pleasure for me to be here with Keith Ellison and other members of Congress. But mostly, I want to thank all of you for your courage, for the courage to go out on strike and say enough is enough. Workers are entitled to dignity. Brothers and sisters, this is the wealthiest country in the history of the world. The problem is almost all of that wealth rests in the hands of a few billionaires. And what we are saying today is that workers like Santia should not be forced to work 70 hours a week and sacrifice their health.
Right.
What we are saying is that workers like Charles should not be working 40 hours a week and living out on the streets.
That's right.
That is not what America is about. I think that if you work 40 hours a week, you have a right not to be living in poverty.
That's right.
Today, we send a very loud and clear message to the United States Congress, to the President of the United States, and to corporate America. And that is, all of our workers from coast to coast need at least $15 an hour. What we are saying loudly and clearly is $7.25 an hour. The current federal minimum wage is a starvation wage. It's got to be raised to a living wage.
That's right.
What we are saying today is that we have got to close the loophole that allows employers to pay tipped workers, waiters and waitresses and others a shamefully low $2.13 an hour. That's got to change. And what we are saying is that Senate contractors and federal contractors must pay all of their workers a living wage with affordable health care, decent benefits, and the right to join a union.
Right.
And that's exactly why all of us are here today. Today, more than half of all African American workers and nearly 60% of Latino workers make less than $15 an hour. Unacceptable.
Unacceptable. That's right. That's right.
Since 1968, the minimum wage has lost over 30% of its purchasing power. Unacceptable.
Unacceptable.
The president must sign an executive order so that every federal contract worker in this country is paid a living wage, good benefits, and the right to join a union. Let me reiterate a point that Joseph made a moment ago. The largest low-wage employer in America, not Burger King, not McDonald's, not Walmart's. It is the United States government. The United States government should not be the largest low-wage employer. It should be the best employer in America. So, brothers and sisters, the good news is, and I want you all to know this, that as a result of your efforts from coast to coast, cities, states are beginning to understand that we need a minimum wage, which is a living wage. And you are the people who started that ball rolling. Seattle did it. Los Angeles did it. New York City has done it. And it's time for the federal government to do it.
Yeah! Right, right, right.
Thank you all very much. Let's go forward together.
Yeah! Yep, yep.
And now we go to a second report on McDonald's and Walmart's refusal to pay a living wage.
Walmart and McDonald's just love to keep it low, real low. And we're not liking it. And we're not the only ones who feel that way. The Walmart empire has recently been embroiled in yet another fight over living wages, but this time with the Washington, D.C. City Council. The District of Columbia City Council voted to approve a living wage bill, which mandates that billion-dollar big box retailers like Walmart must provide a $12.50 living wage in the district. Walmart is fighting back in the most mature way that can be expected against this apparently egregious abuse of government power against private industry. Stephen Restivo, Walmart Senior Director of Communications, told Politico that the company has canceled plans for 3 sites in D.C. and is on the brink of pulling out of the 3 remaining locations. So sad. Mayor Vincent Gray, a Democrat, can veto the measure, but he has not said one way or the other whether he's going to.
This is pretty incredible, you know, and what makes this even more incredible is when you look at the numbers kind of on the other side of this. You know, Walmart does their thing, right? Well, according to the recent report from the U.S. House Committee on Education and the workforce, the low wages that a single Walmart provides for the community, like the low wages it pays its employees, end up costing taxpayers upwards of $1 million in government support for those workers and their dependents. You know, like obviously someone's not getting paid enough, they're going to have to look for certain government subsidies and things like that in order to like keep them, you know, healthy and above board. So, you know, Walmart having the low wages, you know, forces us, the taxpayers, puts a burden on us, the taxpayer.
To pick up the bill. We have to pick up the remaining bill of taking care of their employees. And one of the things, like with Walmart, we've heard many times, is that it's really hard for people there to often get a full 40 hours. So then they don't get things like health insurance, or they get it in a certain way, but it's massively expensive when you're working at 9, 7, depending on your area, anywhere from like $6 to $8 an hour at 30 some odd hours a week. The extra money to do everything. Brutal. This report, the report finds that a single 300-employee Walmart supercenter in Wisconsin may cost taxpayers anywhere from $904,542 to nearly $1.75 million per year, or about $5,815 per employee. And Wisconsin has 100 Walmart stores. 75 of those are supercenters, which create all these jobs. And you have Ahia Nugan, a director at the Los Angeles Alliance for the New Economy, which is part of the coalition that is suing Los Angeles over a Walmart being opened in Chinatown. What she said was, quote, "What we're seeing in DC, it's great. All over the country, local areas are saying, we're going to fight back because we feel like we deserve more," end quote.
Now we visit with Bill Moyer's report on a new book called Capital. Capital exposes how the U.S. is the most unequal nation in history. New York Times economist Paul Krugman outlines how yesterday's Carnegies and Rockefellers are now gone. Today's 1% are the lazy, uneducated heirs of obscene, unimaginably powerful wealth. Paul Krugman argues for a Robin Hood tax on Wall Street speculators. Paul Krugman also calls for a straight millionaires tax, which he believes could begin to eliminate inequality in America. In the middle of the rip-roaring 1914 to 1929s, as a nation we stepped back. We raised taxes on the richest and started the infamous personal income tax in 1913. Let's take a look and listen to Bill Moyers.
In this age of hyperlinks and cyberspace, nearly 6 centuries after Gutenberg devised his printing press, it's still possible for a single book to shake the foundations, rattle cliches, upend dogma, unnerve ideologues, and arm everyday people with the knowledge they need to fight back against the predatory powers that have robbed them of their birthright as citizens. This is such a book, Capital in the 21st Century, by the French economist Thomas Piketty, the book of the season to many, to others, the book of the decade. Reviewers have called it a bulldozer of a book, magisterial, seminal, definitive, a watershed. At 700 pages, it's already a bestseller, and there isn't a single scene of seduction, not one celebrity interview, not one picture, just graph after graph, fact on fact, drawn from 2 centuries of data and embedded in prose that can suddenly explode like a supernova in the brain. Here's one of its extraordinary insights. We are heading into a future dominated by inherited wealth as capital concentrates in fewer and fewer hands, giving the very rich ever greater power over politics, government, and society. Patrimonial capitalism is the name for it, and it has potentially terrifying consequences for democracy. For those who work for a living, the level of inequality in the U.S., writes Piketty, is probably higher than in any other society at any time in the past, anywhere in the world. Over 3 decades, between 1977 and 2007, 60% of our national income went to the richest 1% of Americans.
Our sisters and brothers also take to the streets demanding a raise from $7 and $8 per hour to $15. A child holds up a sign, Niñas para $15.
And to the big finish tonight, an industry dominated by working moms just got a serious wake-up call. Hundreds of workers walked off their jobs across New York City yesterday. This is an unprecedented strike by mostly non-union workers. Their target is the fast food industry. Some people might think fast food employees are just teenage kids out there flipping burgers, making minimum wage until something better comes along. Not the case. The median age of a fast food employee in this country is 28 years old. 66% of fast food employees are women. On average, those women are 32 years of age or older. Fast food is dominated by adult employees. Most fast food workers are part-time. Managers keep them working under 40 hours per week to avoid paying them full benefits. Most make about $18,000 a year, just above minimum wage. The workers in New York City are asking for a raise. They want $15 an hour. I can imagine some Americans think it's a lot to ask when you're in a recession and millions of people don't even have jobs right now. They take a look at a number of different things across the country. But I want you to look at this report. A new report shows corporate profits just hit a record high. Companies are making more money than they have ever made before. The workers are simply asking for a fair deal.
It's just ridiculous that they're not willing to bargain, or they're not willing to sit down and have a contract.
Your crew workers are the ones who are generating this money for you. So please, $15 isn't a lot. Give us a raise.
Right now we're living in poverty. Like, these companies are making billions of dollars and we are not being appreciated for the work that we do. So they're giving us like $7.25, maybe $8. And like, because of that, most of these people, most of my coworkers, they actually had to rely on food stamps and other government help.
More and more Americans might need to rely on fast food wages. People at companies like Sensata and Hostess are getting laid off and looking for jobs. Fast food workers in New York City are demanding a better deal for everyone. Reporter Sarah Jaffe wrote this analysis for The Atlantic. Cheap fast food and their cheap workers impose a cost on the country in the form of food stamps, welfare through the tax code, and social safety net programs. This is a place for government to intervene and for corporations to sacrifice some of their profits by raising wages to a livable level. Reporter Sarah Jaffe joins me tonight here on The Ed Show. Great to have you with us. Excellent reporting. And your analysis, I think, is spot on. Do you think the strike was effective, and will it have an impact?
I think it scared the heck out of the bosses. I mean, all the workers went back into work today. They were accompanied by elected officials. They were accompanied by clergy, community leaders, and all but one were accepted back with no problems. One person, they attempted to fire her. There were about 100 people outside of the store within an hour holding a rally.
What do they want to do? They want to go through what union? What do they want to do?
They're forming an independent union. This was an organizing drive started by a group called New York Communities for Change. They do mostly community organizing, and they were working on housing issues when they started talking to fast food workers and finding out, like you said, that these are adults, that they're supporting families. I spoke to a woman yesterday who has 3 kids. She's supporting on $7.25 an hour from Burger King. And they decided to start organizing. And you know what? They're doing a pretty good job.
We've just had a big discussion in this country about income inequality. Yep. And, of course, the corporate profits are out there. But everybody knew corporate profits were through the roof before they were reported again today. Did this play into it? Did this motivate these workers?
I think everybody knows, right? The workers at Walmart know it. The workers at McDonald's and Burger King in New York know it. Everybody knows that corporations are doing just fine and that the rest of us are getting squeezed.
What kind of impact do you think this could have nationally?
Imagine fast food workers across New York suddenly getting raised to $15 an hour. This is literally the lowest of the low-paying industries. That would be a huge precedent. It would be amazing.
Is there any indication that ownership or management of these franchises would move forward and do something for these workers?
Oh, I mean, there's not an indication, but McDonald's, the franchisee doesn't set their own rules, right? The company gets to decide all the rules. They could decide to give their workers a raise, and they could set a huge example for the rest of the country.
You know, back in the day, it was high school kids that were flipping burgers and just waiting for the next best thing. Yeah. I was really taken by the number of single moms and the age of the workers in this country. You think that is going to have a big impact on whether these companies decide to do something?
I mean, this is the new economy, right? Back in the day, factory jobs weren't good jobs either. They were also low-skill, low-paying jobs. The reason that they became the middle-class jobs that we know, because people organized.
Sarah, what's the next move in this movement? And is it a movement?
Oh, it's a movement. They are not giving up. They are going to keep working, and I spoke to Jonathan Weston from New York Communities for Change just before I came here, and they're hoping that more workers got energized by seeing this happen and by seeing everybody go back in today and not face reprisals.
So the next phase, you think, is what?
I'm hoping for more strikes, Ed.
You're hoping for more strikes.
Oh, yeah.
You think they'll do it?
I think they'll do it.
Do you think the 99% movement had anything to do with this?
I think that it crystallized something that was already going on in this country, that people knew about where the wealth was going, right? They knew over the last 30 years that we've seen it all going to the people at the top, and the people at the bottom were just getting squeezed. Meanwhile, their productivity's gone up. They're working harder. They're working longer.
And there has been no organized union that has gone in and led them to do this. This is very grassroots, isn't it?
This is very grassroots. This is led by a community group. This is the workers deciding what they wanted by themselves. They are asking for a union. They're forming their own independent union. It would be across the fast food franchises in the city.
This is very interesting.
It's pretty exciting.
I mean, it's a change of the times.
Yep.
And they are speaking up. It's one to follow. Sarah Jaffe, independent journalist, thank you for joining us tonight. Appreciate it.
Now we take our viewers to see our brothers and sisters in SEIU Local 721 as they take to the streets. They are asking for a raise to $15 an hour.
Workers around Los Angeles who make near the minimum wage. Walking off the job today, they're demanding better compensation. They want the minimum wage to be raised to $15 an hour.
This sets a precedent for what our families and our future needs to make a living wage, to be able to be successful, to take advantage of all the opportunities we have.
Fighting for justice! Fighting for justice! And a living wage! And a living wage!
When large profitable corporations and institutions such as McDonald's and USC keep pay rates so low, it hurts their employees as well as their families and the communities around them.
I'm here because there are too many people that are in the poverty level. There are too many people trying to get out of it. I see it with the people that I work with that are barely making any kind of money to live off of. They need a lot of assistance. And even with the assistance that the county is able to offer them, they just can't make it. And what's even scarier is people who work within the county can't make it because they're not even getting $15 an hour.
My mom spent more than 20 plus years working at a fast food restaurant. She would wake up every morning, take the bus. When she retired, she was only earning about $9.50 an hour.
Close to 50% of U.S. workers make less than $15 an hour with no benefits. Is that wrong?
When do we want it? When do we want it? And if we don't get it,